and strong language from the start.
The search of the 3 missing Montgomery College students continues in Frederick County tonight.
Do you believe the occult may be involved in the disappearance of your son?
I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them.
Okay, come this way, over here. Okay, look. So, it's the middle of the night. We're in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and look what we've got. See all this stuff? Look. Hats. T-shirts. Badges. Posters. Stickers. CD. Torch. Now all this stuff is clearly the promotional material for some multi-million-dollar movie like Armageddon or Godzilla. Except, of course, it isn't. Because unlikely as it sounds, all this is actually the byproduct of a film that cost around $35,000 to make, that was shot by 2 Florida Film School graduates who'd never made a feature before and didn't even expect this one to get released. But unbelievable as it may sound, this is where you get to when you follow the trail of the Blair Witch.
Hurry up! I'm coming! My boots aren't laced. Oh my God, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?
Okay, so in case you don't already know, the legend goes something like this. Almost 5 years ago to the day, back in October 1994, 3 young student filmmakers decided to spend a weekend shooting a documentary about the so-called Blair Witch in the densely wooded areas near Burkittsville in Maryland. So they borrowed a 16mm camera, some digital video recording equipment and some sound equipment, and they headed off in search of a good story. And that anyone ever saw of them. They just never came back.
We're obviously not wanted here, so let's get the hell out.
We have to get the DAT back anyway.
I realize that.
Okay,
that's what
let's
I'm
go.
saying. Let's get the DAT back. Let's get our shit packed up. Let's walk.
About a year later, the footage which those youngsters had shot was found and bought by a company called Haxon Films, who, through some very smart editing, managed to reconstruct a document of that fateful journey. That film was then called The Blair Witch Project, and when it was released in cinemas, it put the fear of God into an entire generation of moviegoers. It's a brilliant story, except of course none of it's true. Well, not all of it is true. There really were 3 young filmmakers, or 3 young actors pretending to be filmmakers. They really were stuck out there in the woods for about 8 days, and although they weren't lost, they didn't know what they were looking for, or what was looking for them. And they really were scared.
This is Burkittsville, formerly Blair. It is a small, quiet Maryland town, much like a small, quiet town anywhere. There are an unusually high number of children laid to rest here, most of whom passed in the 1940s. Yet no one in the town seems to recall anything unusual about this time. To us, anyway. Yet legend tells a different story.
The casting process was really important in this film because, you know, Ed and I came up with these character profiles that we felt fit the story and the backstory. And so what we were trying to do is cast personalities rather than actors to portray a particular role, because we knew there was so much improvisation throughout the film.
We were given a great deal of freedom, especially as my character was sort of making the documentary initially, and I had tons of freedom as far as writing the documentary that I wanted to make as my character.
So I got the CP up.
Good. That's important, because that's what we're shooting on.
No one knows I took it, but I got it.
All right, come on, into the house. Come on, come on. I can see you. We're not gonna bump into shit along backwards now. Okay, we don't want to fuck up the cameras before we leave.
We trained them before the shooting began, a couple days on, you know, loading the camera, and Mike, the sound guy, was trained on the DAT recorder. So, you know, we just kind of gave him like a 3-day film school.
Okay, we're gonna do an equipment check, but I'm gonna call my mom.
Okay, I've got a bag of Utz and a beer.
And we don't really need to get that in. So I guess you're covered then. Could you just run it for a couple of feet for me so we can check that it's okay?
We definitely warned them that they were going to be pretty much not really treated very well.
We weren't told much as far as specifics of what we would be doing. It was more just the nature of the filmmaking.
We made it clear to them, you know, I mean, even in the audition process, we put a sheet out there that said, if you don't like camping, if you don't like being out in the woods, if you don't like being scared, don't even try out for this part. So it was very important from the very start that we make it clear to people that this wasn't a conventional, you know, film.
What?
We came up with this, you know, real-time format to shoot, you know, the solid 8 days out in the woods and keep the actors immersed in their characters as much as possible.
A lot of it was, I think, just acclimating to, you know, being in character and staying in character. I mean, not many situations in a film that you get on do you have the camera rolling all the time.
What do you think that was last night?
Personally,
Yeah.
I think it was someone fucking with your head.
And nobody knows we're out here.
Yeah, but you ever see Deliverance?
They would watch the dailies at night and give us instructions, character motivations on what they saw and where they wanted to take it for the next day. And we wouldn't know what each other's character motivation was. So a lot of the time, you know, we would be conflicting in what our, you know, what our goal for the scene would be.
That's good, thank you.
You know, that in itself created a lot of tension.
No, I'm not fucking scared. I'm just tired. I'm hungry. I'm just fucking done, man.
All right.
We guided them through the woods with this GPS system, this global positioning system, that allowed the actors to remain isolated, but yet still in contact with us.
We had little instructions put in milk crates with big bicycle flags, and we could spot them using the GPS, and then every once in a while around the milk crate you'd hear this little skulking in the woods, and every once in a while if it was dark you'd see this red beam and you knew it was the Haxon band of goons running around again.
Hello?
They let us sleep the first night.
Yeah.
And then, you know, starting on the second night, there was certainly a building of how much they were going to torture us and, you know, how much was going to go down and what that was.
We'd wake up like at 2 in the morning and we'd walk out there, you know, a mile to the location, and we'd sneak up on them and we'd make sure they're asleep, you know, make sure nobody's talking.
And they were setting up, you know, sound loops of babies crying and kids laughing outside at 10 and 4 in the morning.
Basically, it was just us running through trees and going nuts out there in the complete darkness.
I think it was by about the 4th day that you know, the insanity really came into play.
Go, fucking go!
Ed and I both, you know, try to you know, do something different with a genre that we felt was kind of, you know, maybe getting a little old over time.
We started talking about horror films and what kind of films scared us when we were little kids, and we had kind of the same horror films, you know, The Shining and The Exorcist.
So we felt Blair was in that same spirit, something that was a psychological horror, which we feel is much scarier than, you know, just getting a knife in the neck or something like that.
What bugs me out is that we're so damn deep in the woods, and people are going to try and come out here and mess with us, then they got to have something wrong with them, and I'm not going to play with that.
But how do we know it was people?
Well, even if it wasn't, I'm not going to play with that either.
I think it plays on a lot of the innate fears of human nature, you know, the unknown, isolation, which is kind of prerequisites of horror, and we just took with what we had to work with, which is a very, you know, kind of a minimal budget, minimal resources, and use those as our strengths.
Oh, fuck, it's cold.
As well as using satellite tracking to play cat and mouse with the cast, the filmmakers also used the internet to draw the audience into their nightmare. Publicising the movie with a Blair Witch website which treated the events depicted as real, they fortuitously sparked off a network of mirror sites, all of which got the world believing in the mythology of the Blair Witch. I mean, why bother with huge advertising budgets when word of mouth, as it's now referred to, can put you in touch with armies of fans convinced that the truth is out there?
We came up with the Blair Witch legend, and we just wanted everybody to have a real good sense of the backstory, you know, of why they were out there examining this. And it just grew and grew, and we have a really rich myth right now that you can actually check out on the website, BlairWitch.com.
really the website was kind of like a medium for the mythology. So we all created the mythology and threw it up there as kind of for people to find out about. Ed formatted the site in such a way to where it was a kind of interactive experience.
I just wanted the website to just kind of be just this kind of this investigative website that basically treated this case as if it were real, and I think that's what people dug it. And so it just became kind of a playground really for a lot of people that were interested in the movie, and it generated an incredible fan base. And really, once we got into Sundance, it generated so much. We had so much momentum going into Sundance because of the website and all the fans we had, and it was just a great experience. We got a lot of good feedback when we were poor and we were, we didn't know what we had. We got a lot of feedback on the email and on our discussion board saying, hang in there, and I love this idea. You guys are great, and this and that, and it kind of helps in those dark times. So it was a great tool for us, and I really don't think that the film would have done nearly as much money, as much business as it's done if it weren't for the website.
The filmmakers even persuaded, or perhaps tricked, the hugely popular Internet Movie Database into listing their actors as missing presumed dead, something which hadn't been done since the legendary Snuff was marketed in the mid-70s without credits, and all of which added to those mysterious rumours which helped turn the Blair Witch Project from a filmmaker's nightmare into a marketing man's dream. But can they really have imagined that millions of Americans would have bought it all? Or that loads of teenagers would have started turning up at the real Burkittsville, Maryland, to help search and pray for those missing filmmakers? I mean, it couldn't hurt, could it? And that is only half the story. Like all the best horror films, the Blair Witch Project was essentially sold to its audience as a true story, something that really happened, or really could have happened. It was helped by The Curse of the Blair Witch, a short-form documentary comprising offcuts and outtakes which purported to follow up on the disappearance of the filmmakers, and which was first aired on America's Sci-Fi Channel as an apparently straight piece of investigative journalism. Smart move.
Well, Heather was probably one of the 2 or 3 best students that I've had the pleasure of teaching. She was committed. She was energetic. She was very creative. She had submitted a proposal to me to do a short documentary on the legend of Blair Witch. It was something I had never heard of before, to tell you the truth.
Josh feels it's necessary to look at the map now, even though I know where we're going, and we're going straight ahead up there.
If you've known where we're going, we wouldn't be hiking like...
We're in the middle of the woods.
Some of it is off-trail hiking.
I have harbored some guilt because as I looked back over the proposal later, I realized that I had neglected to notice that Heather had suggested going into the woods for a couple of days working on the film.
The only piece of evidence found by police was Joshua Leonard's car parked on Black Rock Road.
We checked the car over completely, never found any clues with the vehicle. We checked with witnesses that may have seen the film students, and we can never locate them.
Of course, the mock documentary format is actually nothing new. I mean, back in the 30s, Orson Welles was scaring a bunch of radio listeners with his War of the Worlds broadcast.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences.
For which he had to publicly apologize after people ran screaming from their houses, thinking that they'd been listening to news coverage of a genuine Martian invasion.
I am so sorry for everything that has happened. Because in spite of what Mike says now, it is my fault. Because it was my project. And I insisted. on everything.
In terms of horror films, the Blair Witch Project actually owes a great debt to the Italian Mondo shocker Cannibal Holocaust, which got itself outlawed in Britain in the early 1980s, partly because the director of public prosecutions thought it was just too real for comfort. In Ruggero Deodata's grueling movie, a group of documentary filmmakers go off in search of a tribe of lost cannibals, and guess what? They don't come back, but their film does.
Wait, Jack. I can't. No, not yet. Wait. Move away. Jack, give me a shot. No. Wait, this is fucking dangerous. This is fucking
There are also stylistic nods to films as diverse as Deliverance, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Southern Comfort, and of course that other so-called nasty, The Evil Dead, which also managed to get itself briefly outlawed by the DPP, and which gave new meaning to the phrase, "There's something scary within the woods." But not all the touchstones are quite so well known. In the past couple of months, there's been a lot of speculation about the role that a film called The Last Broadcast may or may not have played in the creation of the Blair Witch Project. This film, shot in '97 by Stefan Avalos and Lance Weil, finds the filmmakers stumbling on the myth of the Jersey Devil when they head off into the Pine Barrens, armed only with a couple of video cameras. Sounds familiar? Well, check it out for yourself, courtesy of yet another eerie website. Wherever they got their ideas from, the Blair Witch Project uses them well. At last count, the film had taken nearly $150 million in the States, outstripping the likes of Scream, which cost 100 times as much to make, and capturing the imagination of audiences who, a year ago, were laughing along with in-jokey teen terror pics, and who are now so scared they don't know where fact ends and fiction begins.
I am seriously fucking positive these were not here. How would we have, like, just made a campsite in between 3 piles of rocks just by coincidence?
I really wanted to believe it was real, and I really wanted to be terrified by it, because there's nothing I like more than a genuinely petrifying horror film. And pretty much half an hour into this movie, you realize that it has the potential to be really, really alarming and frightening. And I'm a pretty hard guy, pretty macho, so that's testament to how frightening it was for me. You're expecting through the whole thing that they're going to throw something terrifying at you. And I can't say any more about that because I'd give stuff away, but basically it builds up more anticipation and expectation in like its first hour than any other film.
You gotta fucking stay out here with me.
I am.
What time is fucking anywhere near the morning right now?
3.
Fuck!
I saw it in the morning, which was very odd, and also I knew nothing of what it was to be, so I was sort of thinking, well, here we go for another screening at Cannes, blah, blah, blah.
This is a press screening for the Blair Witch Project, which is, well, it's sort of a mockumentary, I believe.
And so in I went, extremely blasé, sat mistakenly at the very front of the balcony section, and and was the first person out.
It was totally without irony, and totally without, almost completely without humor, and without all the kind of post-Tarantino referencing crazy pop culture baggage that almost every single genre film seems to have these days.
It's unbelievable. That's nothing. It's never happened to me before. That, you know, my whole body, my heart. If you see at the end of the clip, I'm just about doing this, and I'm about to say, "Feel my heart beat," because it's like this. I mean, I was just shaking. It was awful.
Oh my God. Fucking hell. How are you?
Frightening.
What do you think? Fucking hell.
It uses the public's perception of home movies as a signifier of reality, as its trump card. So people are still not sufficiently used to seeing home movie footage in a cinema. The fact that it opened the same year as The Phantom Menace is deeply significant.
But I always feel that there's this sort of film between you and the film. It's like there's a protective layer. I don't know, sort of an embryonic sac, and you're all right because you're in there. But with this, it was just so immediate. I stuck my fingers into the sort of socket right at the beginning, and I couldn't take them out. I was like, ah! And it literally contorting myself in an attempt to sort of. I actually had the cliche thing where I was sitting there saying, Louise, it's only a film. It's only a film.
I mean, anybody worth their salt around here knows that this area's been haunted by that old woman for years.
That's bullshit.
The other really good thing about the movie is it never does the, you know, cat jumps out of the cupboard shock.
Uh-huh.
Nobody ever puts
Ooh.
their hand on someone's
Ooh, that
shoulder
scared
or
me.
like, you know, there's never that alien moment of Jonesy, Jonesy, when the cat jumps out and shit like that. So it's constantly, but you're really expecting it to conform to one of these horror film conventions at some point, but it really doesn't.
But do you understand at all where I was coming from? That I just wanted to get whatever it was. I didn't know. Josh woke me up. I was freaking out. I woke up all of a sudden and shit's going down. And all I can think is I gotta get it.
It will change the way people do things, but you probably won't get anything like it because it would be very difficult for it to be as good. I think it probably is the most significant horror film since the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Like any hit movie, the Blair Witch Project has spawned more spoofs and spin-offs than you can wave a stick at. I mean, just trawling through this lot here, we have the Blair Warner Project, in which a bad actress disappears after performing dubious home perms. The Bewitched Project, which puts a new spin on that most nose-tingling of TV shows. Mr. T versus the Blair Witch, which I think pretty much speaks for itself. And of course, the Bear Witch Project, which purports to be the true story of the search for the 300-year-old witch who allegedly screwed her victims to death. Go figure. The Blair Warner Project, in which a bad actress disappears off Witch Project, which puts a new spin on that most nose-tingling of Mr. T versus the Blair Witch, which I think pretty much speaks for itself. The Bear Witch Project, which purports to be the true story behind the search. But the most interesting and persistent spin-off rumour is the assertion that, having made a mint from their no-budget original, Eduardo Sanchez and Dan Myrick are now set to spend an equally large amount of money on the Hollywood-style... You all right? Prequel, in which we finally get to meet the Blair Witch. Fact or fiction?
Artisan wants to make another Blair film, and whether we're going to be involved or not is yet to be determined. But we have a story, we have an idea that we're excited about, and they seem to be excited about too. And now it's just a matter of like getting the timetable together so that we can actually shoot it and we can release it when they want to release it, and we can shoot it when we want to shoot it, when we're ready to shoot it. But I mean, you know, our big thing with Blair is that we would rather have somebody else ruin it than have us ruin it. And if we really don't have any good ideas, or if they're not going to let us do the idea that we want to do for some reason or the other, we'd rather let them have a shot at it and see if they can do something good with it. And if not, we can just say, hey, we didn't do it.
So this is where the trail of the Blair Witch has led us so far. Where do we go from here? I have no idea, because I'm completely lost in the dark. The only advice I'd give you is believe nothing you hear or read. Because in the end, the Blair Witch Project is everything you'd hope for and nothing you'd expect. And that really is scary.